Well, let's go ahead and move forward then, Jay. Why don't you take us through your star camps?
Cool. Thank you. So I'm excited about star camps, and I think it dovetails with a lot of the topics that we've touched upon on this session. But this has come together incredibly well. And I'd like to make like three main points. Number one, I try to boil things down into 3 points. And star camps, I think, is an avenue that really focuses on trust, control, and value. So that's one thing. Um, you know, number two is this is a different type of project than what most of us are used to working on, which is, open source and so forth, because this focuses on a way for the people that are participating to create value for themselves. And so that's point number two is, this has finally reached a point where, and my internet connection is a little spotty, so I might break up on this thing, but this has reached via this, what I'm about to show you, something that I think we can actually start to work on. But the third point is, in working on this, I've realized that, there's a saying that we're probably all familiar with, which is not your keys, not your coins. Well, by putting this little prototype together, I've realized that if it's not your keys, it's not your privacy. And if it's not your keys, it's not your identity. And if it's not your keys, it's not your state. So that's some of the groundwork before we get into this. But this is something I'm sending out to some folks where we're having Zoom sessions, and we'll have one tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And I plan to have these every Tuesday night for the foreseeable future, only for 30 minutes, just to sort of coordinate the community. And then next week, we'll be having an evening session at the Internet Archive starting at 5 p.m. with dinner at 6, and then talks, hopefully with some of the braid folks joining at 7 p.m. To 8:30. And then the following day, on Wednesday, the 28th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., including lunch will be included as well, we'll have a build session where we can actually use this prototype and start to build some things. So I did a little privacy demonstration. I won't go through this video, but it's about an 8-minute video, including my mistakes, where it shows how to use the public key that is authenticated through star camps and decrypt a message through a tool on the web called PGP tool. So here's the table of contents. And by the way, if anybody on this is interested in getting on the distribution list, please let me know. But the Zoom links, table of contents, the agenda. I've added this campsites directory, and I think that really dovetails with what we've been talking about, some of the points in terms of discovery and, peer-to-peer connection. Did somebody have a comment? Anyway, and then I've got a list of potential participants of over 30, and many of them were at the webcamp, and they're on this list because, and their names aren't fully disclosed, but they were interested in star camps in multiple dimensions, and the list is starting to grow. I'll go over the stack proposals a little bit, and then the upcoming events. And there's some sort of placeholders in this table of contents. And then I've got a list of the videos that were forerunners to this prototype. So here is just 3 potential projects that we could work on Wednesday, the 28th, at the Internet Archive. And the first one is universal identity and universal state. when we move or change our email addresses or whatever, it's a problem to propagate that out to all the various places where our existing information resides. Well, I think with the Star Camps prototype and with the braid protocol, we might be able to actually stand up a project where we could play with changing our information in one spot and it propagates out to multiple uh, places and multiple endpoints. The second one is Web3, cybersecurity, and migration from centralized networks. And this actually touches upon some of the data schema, unification that we were talking about earlier. But there's a session that I did for the Stellar community for about an hour talking about how our centralized networks are failing more frequently and bigger failures. I won't go into that, but I think with this prototype I'm about to show you and with the braid protocol, we could actually start to introduce some interesting migration paths from the centralized networks to decentralized, more secure networks. And then the third point is authentication of identity and public keys. And that's really at the foundation of Star Camps. So here is an example, a very, very simple example of the essence of Star Camps, which is have a very, a 15-digit, let's say, index or, location, and then pair that with the SHA-256 hash of a public key that has gone through somewhat of an authentication process. And that's it. Just those two simple things, a 15-digit number that can also spell phrases because it's mapped to lettering, paired with a SHA-256 hash. I don't think anybody could argue with those two things, just a constitution of those two items. And then once we've got that very simple foundation, what can we do with that? So just to run through a couple of examples, here's my campsite, which I'm calling it, which is JC, the last 4 digits of the 1111 Star Camps route or camp. And so you can click through this to my handle, get some information. This is a hash of the public key that's associated with this particular campsite. So within the Star Camps, there's campsites. And basically each one of us in this braid group could have our own campsite and we could create things. So let me click through to this and show you what a campsite is. And so this is a campsite. It'll load here. And
while you're doing that, can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I need to run, so it's nice to meet you all. I'll see you around.
Thanks, Josh.
Right, bye.
Great to meet you as well. See you, Josh.
Okay, so here is the numeric version of the campsite, which is, this spells 1111 Star Camps or camp, and you add the S at the end, which is immaterial. And then this spells JAYC. So here's the human friendly, here's the machine friendly. And then as you click through this, this is my handle information, JC, when my public key was approved. And there's a link back to the handle, which you can go through. But here's the public key, which you can copy, you can check, make sure that the hash coincides with this public key, and the public key has been authenticated by the the controller of the camp, which happens to be me. But here you can get a download of the key itself. Here's a public key QR code, and here's the secret key. And the reason the secret key is here is so that people can play around with this to encrypt, decrypt, and the secret key isn't so secret because it's the secret. The passphrase is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and there's a QR code. But this PGP tool, which is a website, is the most user-friendly thing that I've come across to encrypt and decrypt messages. And then once, of course, the message is encrypted, you can send it any way you want, email, text, put it on your social media, whatever. And theoretically, it's secure as long as you've got the right public key to the person that you think you're dealing with. So this is a Patreon page, and I think there's some interesting things that could be done with Patreon to stand up some experiments and maybe monetize some use cases in very short order, and attract regular users and see how they work with it. This is again my demo that I did a few days ago. You can watch that. I think it's important to pair a password manager with this, and I think that's an opportunity set to see how to incorporate a password manager to make it as easy as possible to manage your secret key with your public key and so forth. And then I am a big fan, like Ty, of Raspberry Pis. So I would, if I had a magic wand, we would be building stuff on Raspberry Pis to keep this as close to the metal as possible. So let's see if I can get back to the main page here. Anyway, I'll do it this way. Well, my computer is okay.
While you're, I just want to show everyone. This is a Raspberry Pi. The badge at DEF CON was a Raspberry Pi.
Very cool. Okay, so hopefully we are back at the main Tuesday Zoom item, and so this, hopefully you can see this, but basically there are two people that have campsites assigned to them, me and a fellow named Matt, who was on the last Tuesday Zoom session. And an important part about the Zoom session is it is part of the authentication process. Matt talked, he showed his face on the Zoom. I have a high degree of assurance that it was Matt that was with us on that Zoom session. I also met Matt at DWebCamp. But you can go through this and you can see the first names of the people that have expressed interest in this. And this will be a running list that sense of the at least initial seed community, and start to understand who they are, how many of these people are absolutely incredible. So I won't belabor this, but this is a very quick distinction of what's called, I call a cell camp. So everybody that's got a smartphone or a cell phone can build a camp that is, let's say, aligned with the cell phone number that they have in their pocket. So not asking people to adopt a new identifier. And then, as I showed you, each of these cell phone numbers, because of the letter mapping, can spell some sort of phrase. Most of it doesn't make sense, but some of them are easy to remember. And that's a really important part. And here's some examples of what I call choice camps. So choice camps start with a prefix, the 1111. That would not match any operating public switch telephone number. So this is sort of like green field. it's white space, that there wouldn't be any collisions with underlying telephone numbers in this. And on the Wednesday session on the 28th, I think we can start to experiment with some of these, what I'll call camps. So 1111 internet, 1111 Ethereum, Filecoin, etc., and see what could be created. Here's the stack I'm proposing, which I've already gone over to some degree. This is the information on our Zoom session tomorrow night, and then the in-person at the Internet Archive on the 27th and 28th. And then we'll have a continuing Zoom session on the September 3rd. And this is past events. This is, I haven't really finished putting the correct information in here. And this is the schedule for the Tuesday evening session. And I do plan to do a Zoom from 7 to 7:30 just to keep this consistency, but the rest of it won't be Zoomed out to the public. Probably be recorded, but not Zoomed. And then this is the proposed schedule for the 28th, which is, gathering at the archive at 11, have some lunch, socialize, and then break off into teams of 5 if we've got 20 people, and the max will be 20 people. And then start to hammer on what could be created with braid constructs and Google Docs. And I'm using Google Docs as basically a starting point for the braid protocol. Ideally, we'd like to be using braid, but Google Docs is a good starter point. And then also the star camp, camp and camp directories and so forth, and authenticated public keys. So this is the session that we did last Tuesday, and this is the presentation that I did, which was very well received at DWeb Camp on Universal Unified Identity and State. Had some of the top people in the world in this realm that listened in. And this is a session that we did at the Internet Archive. I call him Happy Tinker because that's his handle on Stellar, but he was there as well. And I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I don't see the lettering in front of me. Actually, Hiroyuki was on this one.
Hiroyuki.
Hiroyuki. Okay, great. Thank you. And then this is an indication. This is kind of a little thing that was sparked out of the hour-long session with the Stellar community, where there was just a, hey, the canvas is unlimited on this. We could have star camps at the Antarctica. And that was just a comment that was thrown out, but it started a line of thinking that, yeah, maybe we could. There's actually going to be cell phone service at Antarctica in short order with the satellite services that are being rolled out. But the important point about this slide is that I think it's important to invite at least these 3 communities, Stellar, Ethereum, and Filecoin, to start to join in on this initiative and to start to tie some of the data points to the decentralized networks. And I would like to invite another, not blockchain institution that we're all familiar with that's interested in archiving data. I would like to invite them to participate as well. So yeah, then this is my information, and I think that's about it. So yeah, hopefully that's a quick introduction. Any comments or questions?
I have a comment or question. My comment or question is, I want to say, well, here's my thought. I do like the the idea of having small Zoom sessions to see that people are real. And I can imagine doing Zoom sessions and sort of trading blocks of verified IDs. I don't get the numbers. I don't like the public key. I get that. I don't know the use of the 111. I don't know where I would type that in or why. But having some system to try to aggregate a list of known humans paired with some public key, that I do think is useful. That's my comment on your question.
Cool. Thanks. And that's a fundamental value proposition of this, because it's increasingly becoming more difficult to tell what is real and what's not real. And, yes, we can do it via Zoom, and we take at face value whatever information people give us. And there is sort of an aging process and a curing process regarding the authenticity of the key, public key, and the people, and so forth. But this is designed to actually have physical locations that are nomadic, that can be stood up, that can be taken down. And I think it's really important. And there are certain situations and use cases where having people be able to come to a place in person and work out transactions they're having a problem with, strengthen the authentication around the public key, is really important. It's like, when you have a problem with your smartphone, you got to go to an Apple store or AT&T or Verizon. When you have a problem with your banking transactions, you got to go into the branch, and you got to sit down with a banker and work through it. And I think it's even worse with decentralized constructs, because they are so non-human friendly. So I think there's a really rich set of opportunities with this. And the other thing that I'd really like to emphasize is, I hadn't been playing around with Google Slides for some time, but I had been playing around with the demos that you've been setting up, Greg, and huge synergy between using Google Slides as part of the foundation for, you said you don't know where to put 1111 star camps. Well, you can go to www.starcamps.net, and that's where you can tie these addresses that spell something that are human friendly. But in using Google Slides and looking at the permissions, and I've talked about how identity and state dance together. I think the identity piece is essential. I don't know how you could do.
You just have a name. You just have the public key associated with anything you want. Like I have a contact list on my phone, and I put my own name there. You can make a list of these 111 numbers, and anything that has these numbers with 111, you could have anything there. I'm just suggesting that, like that part I don't personally get. Like if it was connected to the actual phone system, I could see. But I do want to emphasize that I do get the in-person meetings and the online Zoom meetings and the public key. Those things I get, but the phone number part,
so
personally, I don't get that part.
So on the cell camps, you actually do have a phone connection, because you have a phone that operates independently, but you also have this identifier that aligns with your phone.
So nobody has a phone number that starts with 1111.
Well, that's a choice camp. That's a different animal.
I just mean the phone number doesn't. I don't want to. I'm just saying,
Well,
I understand it. It's
I,
not,
I
not
did notice, Jay,
necessary
that
that I be appeased.
I did notice, Jay, that when you introduced it, you said that you don't foresee there being any arguments about that number paired with the public key. I do think that that's where the arguments are. As
yes,
in here.
yes, exactly. But in the numeric form, there's no argument. In the phrase form, there's definitely arguments. And believe me, I've been through those arguments in the telecommunications world.
I mean,
So
I think we're
know-
arguing about the numeric form too. I think that's what we're arguing about here.
Okay, well, let just please go with me for the moment and for the sake of time. And I can better demonstrate why there's no argument. Because
I need to
you have
demonstrate why it's necessary, not why there's no, I don't get the concept of there being no argument. I
okay.
see the argument. I want to know why I need it. Like, why can't I just have a public key and
There's a
put letters next to it of my
Yeah.
own creation that you don't have any control over? And your public key is the thing that identifies you for real.
So I'll give you a quick peek at this because there's a piece that I have not disclosed yet, which is you know what contiguous land is, where you
I do know, and if that's where you're going with it, you want to sell those numbers. I think that like I say, I think that the crucial thing here is the humanness of these meetings, where I can see that the people are real. Maybe they can give me lists of their own that they have verified, and there's some transitivity to that. I'm on board for that personally. I think that's very interesting and cool. That's why I want to bring that up, because I think that part of your idea is genuinely good. But this selling number, I'm not on board for that. I don't want to buy numbers from you. I don't want your land. I don't want this new scheme of these numbers there. That's not interesting to me.
well, you can have your own camp where you don't have to.
I want the list of people who are human. That's the thing I care about. I don't care about plot numbers.
All right, I get it, and I know this is I think this is a big point with Christian as well. So, I ask you to relax your concerns around that, because
I ask you to listen to my concerns.
I
You
got your
talked to me about this multiple times, and I ask you to think about what I'm saying and don't reject it out of hand. I think that your idea is that you're definitely right on this. There's no argument. Nobody can say anything about it. And I ask you to just consider it. Consider that the idea is good, even without that part.
Okay. I got your comments, Greg. I appreciate your comments. I know your comments reflect probably the majority of people in the decentralized web community, a concern about a marketplace and a concern about having somebody else have control over that. And so I've got that, and I've given that a lot of thought. And there's a part of this that I have not shared with you that I think addresses those concerns. But, two things about what you said about you can map any name to any.
Oh, we're just about the time.
Yeah. Okay. I have my glasses on. So two things about what you said, you can map any name to any address. Number one, that spurs collisions, and those can be big time problematic in terms of security.
Keys are the things that don't have collisions. The names I can choose myself.
Okay. But number two is the identity element of many of these decentralized constructs, social networks. I won't name them by name, but they only are half of the identity consideration. They are machine friendly. They are not human friendly. And hence, because they are not human friendly and they don't have the complete package of machine and human friendliness, in Jay's worldview, A, they are not adopted, and B, they don't scale. They might be great technically, but for human adoption and human scaling, I've seen them fail in my view. So I'm going to be quiet at this point. I really appreciate all of you listening. And I hope you can see, at least from this, that there is now something tangible that can start to be stood up, people can start to use, if nothing more than encrypting, decrypting, sending encrypted messages, and playing with that.
Cool, thanks, Jay. Yeah, I think that we do appreciate the work and the problem space. I think that there has been a deep disagreement about the numbering or the naming scheme using numbers. But I think every time it's been, I remember at least a few meetings that you presented this that I've seen disagreements. And it doesn't sound like the communication is working there and like working out the details on that disagreement. So that's starting to that's a little bit concerning, just that like that conversation doesn't seem to be working very well. So maybe that would be something to work out in a smaller group or something, or one-on-one to make progress there. I remember, because there are other issues, for instance, that I still remember about like other concerns that I'm not even bothering to bring up at this point. And so there could be, so just making progress on that feels like we need to maybe get some small group progress or something first.
Well, and hopefully, Michael, that's what the in-person is designed to do at the archive. And, I will, based on this feedback, I can see the need for unveiling another critical piece of this, which I think mitigates the naming part of it, and also shows that there are ample of the what I call camps and campsites that are spelled nothing and are very akin to a UUID or a DHT hash or whatever. And they have, it's like being out in the middle of the Sahara Desert. But the pieces that are like in the middle of Manhattan or the middle of Los Angeles, those pieces, and I'm speaking from years, decades of experience, they have to be allocated via marketplace. And that's an essential piece of this.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not hearing consensus on that, but we're at end of time. So sorry guys for keeping you all later than I said, but thank you for sticking with us. And I think I can let you all go now. If anyone does want it, I'm just gonna at least hit the stop button. You're all